This week on The Record, State of the State in Missouri. St. Louis Police Chief Robert Tracy is on the record responding to GOP plans to take control of his department from Mayor Jones to give to Governor Kehoe's appointees. Plus, do Governor Mike Kehoe's plans for education run afoul of the Constitution? And big money in the mayor's race, but what do these donors really want? We check the record. But first,
we seize chaotic, careless,
cruelty and chaos, the charges from Capitol Hill Democrats after President Trump freezes federal funds. What other cuts could be coming soon? Congressman Bob Onder is on the record. It's all coming up right now. Hospitals, universities, and educators scrambled earlier this week to understand the impact of President Trump's attempts to freeze federal funding. The White House rescinded that memo after facing fiery backlash, but also insisted the funding freeze would still go on. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. We begin with freshman Congressman Wesley Bell reacting to the White House rescinding and then later the courts blocking the president's push to cut off those funds.
This funding freeze that we were able to defeat in round one, but this is a 15-round fight, impacted folks from all demographics, from our seniors to our children and everyone in between. Any pause or just the threat of a pause does real damage. When organizations like Meals on Wheels does not know if they can feed seniors on a given day, that is problematic. When school districts don't know if they can what they can do, what support they have for their children, if organizations like Annie Malone do not have the resources that they need, that is something that cannot be tolerated.
The Trump Budget Office officially rescinded its memo which ordered that funding freeze in the first place, but almost immediately the president's official spokeswoman said the freeze was still in place, forcing federal courts to translate what the executive branch was actually up to. Left in the lurch, daycare providers in North City, whose workers look after parents living and working their way through poverty, and whose leaders have a very different understanding of the practical effects of DEI, other than the derisive scorn of political rhetoric.
I think that a lot of people are confused with them, dismantling DEI. I'm going to say, when you talk about equity, right, does that mean they're going to take away subsidies? Because we're trying to put everyone on the same, make funding or make food equitable for people. When you talk about the free and reduced food program, when you pause this, children aren't getting fed. And these are poor children who live in where there's not a grocery store in their neighborhood, okay? And the majority of the food they're getting is from school. So now they're not even going to get fed at school.
On social media, freshman Missouri Congressman Bob Onder, a Republican, applauded the Trump White House Budget Office cutting off federal funds, saying, quote, "Not tired of winning." Congressman Onder is now on the record. Congressman, good to have you with us. While you were celebrating President Trump's funding freeze online, daycare providers, some of them in your district, were shut out of their payment portals. And for 2 days, they were scrambling to try and make emergency plans. Maybe they had to notify parents to get ready or to have other plans for their kids while they go to work or go to college. I understand Congress has every right to conduct oversight of federal spending, but does the president have constitutional authority or the right to just shut the money off?
Well, the president does have the right to make the final appropriation or the final distribution of the funds that we appropriate. Look, that funding freeze in some ways might have been a little broad if it did in fact shut off daycare funds, but it did not shut off direct payments to individuals. It did not shut off Social Security checks, TANF checks. It did not shut off Medicaid or food stamps. But I think a pause, some sort of a pause in government funding and grants was entirely appropriate. The Biden administration was scrambling to get money out the door in the final days of his administration. So the DEI initiatives that President Trump is putting a halt to, he wanted to stop that money from flowing. But there were other ridiculous spending measures that he paused. I mean, money for diversity programs in Burma, $50 million for condoms in Gaza, which were being used to float IEDs into Israeli territory. You can't make this stuff up. So, look, I think the idea of indiscriminately shoveling money out the door is over, and I am glad Donald Trump and the DOGE efforts, I hope, will bring an end to some of this wasteful spending.
You said you can't make this stuff up. I wonder if maybe you can. Have you actually seen the spending records that suggest $50 million were spent on condoms in Gaza? That's a lot of condoms.
Yeah, I haven't personally sent a bit, but this is a good point, because I think many times funny money the numbers get put on paper and the money moves. Whether it actually goes to buy the thing that it was appropriated for, we don't know, or whether it just goes into a slush fund. So I think we need to be critical about this, and I think business as usual in Washington, D.C. is over under the Trump administration and under the Republican Congress.
Whatever adjective or noun we use to describe how poor a person is, Medicaid, as you well know, those benefits only flow to people who are under a certain income threshold. So dollars and cents, a person has to be at a certain poverty level to even qualify. So to your work requirement, I understand you want the people that are getting these benefits to show up and punch a clock. But let me present you with a very real world scenario.
Oh, Mark, what's wrong with going to a job where you have to punch a clock? Are you demeaning the value of work, Mark?
No, not at all. I would never do so. I think that work's a very valuable thing, obviously.
It sounds like you are, though. You demean the idea of going to a job where you have to punch a clock. You don't want people who are capable of working. And right now, to address your question, 130 able-bodied working-age adults can qualify for Medicaid up to 138% of poverty, but that doesn't take into account the value of all the other government services that person may benefit from, like the earned income tax credit, like food stamps, like subsidized childcare, like subsidized housing. So when you add those benefits up, those folks are doing fine. But what we're asking as a society is you need to work for those. And if you do, that is what our social safety network, our social safety net is all about. Giving people a handout when they're in a hard way so they can make a step up. And that's what work requirements are all about. And if they save money also, that is very good. And they do tend to save money.
I hope we can continue this conversation in the weeks ahead and look forward to tracking the progress of these proposals. I'm sure we're running low on time here. Congressman, thanks for joining us. A lot more of that conversation with Congressman Bob Onder up on KSDK.com, and tune in 5+ Monday night for an expanded version of this episode with all that wide-ranging conversation. We're back in a minute. Right now, investigators and lawmakers continue to learn more about what caused that fatal crash between an American Airlines jet and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter Wednesday. President Trump started Thursday's press conference with a moment of silence before quickly criticizing the Biden administration.
The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run the Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. The FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite.
Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth knows the cockpit of a Black Hawk helicopter rather well. That's where she earned a Purple Heart. She's also the ranking member of the Aviation Senate Safety Committee, and she has a lot of questions about how this crash happened.
Diversity makes our country stronger, period. So let me just start off with that. I also want to make it clear that I have seen zero evidence to this point that's to suggest that this collision had anything to do with DEI. And speculation at this time is highly irresponsible, and we need to get to the facts. One of the things that often happen when there is an aircraft mishap is that the people who are the most clueless, like President Trump, immediately blame the pilots. So let's make it clear that we need to let the accident investigators do their jobs.
A spokesman at the NTSB says the agency hopes to have a preliminary report out within 30 days. 4 years ago this month, the FBI had special agents investigating domestic terrorists who had arrived at the U.S. Capitol, and some of whom breached the walls of the Capitol during the riots on January 6th. This week, Senator Dick Durbin, ranking member on the Judiciary Committee, grilled Kash Patel, the man you just saw there, who President Trump picked to lead the FBI. The questioning was over his past remarks, accusing the FBI of planning the riot on January 6th. When Durbin asked him about Trump's blanket pardons of those rioters, Patel compared them to President Biden ordering an 80-year-old indigenous activist, Leonard Peltier, to spend the rest of his life under house arrest after he spent the last 48 years in prison.
So do you think that America is safer because these 1,600 people have been given an opportunity to come out of serving their sentences and live in our communities again?
Senator, I have not looked at all 1,600 individual cases. I have always advocated for imprisoning those that cause harm to our law enforcement and civilian communities. I also believe America is not safer because President Biden's commutation of a man who murdered 2 FBI agents, Agent Kohler's and Williams' family, deserve better than to have the man that point blank range fired a shotgun into their heads and murdered them released from prison.
That standoff was in 1975. In Jefferson City, newly inaugurated Governor Mike Kehoe addressed a joint session of his first State of the State address and teased something new we haven't heard yet from him on the campaign trail. Kehoe suggested doing something that the Missouri Constitution says he can't. Article 1, Section 7 says you can't use public money for religious purposes. You see it there on your screen. But Kehoe proposed spending $50 million in public funds directly into private schools, many of which are often religious.
We've also included $50 million in general revenue funding to bolster the ESA program.
It is unconstitutional to directly give money to private school institutions. So my guess is that there is going to be an enormous challenge on that initiative.
We're back in just a moment with Chief Robert Tracy. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe targeted the push to take over control of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department in his State of the State address this week in Jefferson City. Joining us now to talk about it, one of the top advocates for local control is the Chief, Robert Tracy. Good to have you on the record. I think your maiden voyage on this program.
It is, and thank you for having me, Mark.
We're glad to have you in the full dress blues, in the full brass and outfit there.
Giving the respect to your program.
We appreciate it. What is so far the best argument that you have heard for changing the model, reverting back to this panel of police commissioners? And if I can, one of the arguments, one of the only tangible benefits that I've heard is that they feel somehow this might help with recruiting and bringing in new officers. How do you evaluate that?
So I can only evaluate coming in, always working under local control. We've had successes in every place that I've been in. I've never seen a model that's been successful, and right now we have another place that has the same type of model, and we're not seeing huge successes.
You don't like to name Kansas City by name, but for our viewers, that's the other city in Missouri that has this model.
That city is going through the same issues that we're going through with every city in the United States. Coming out of the pandemic, coming out of civil unrest. Let's not conflate the issues that St. Louis is the only one that has unique issues that the state has to come in and take control. If state control was the model that we should go by, then the other cities should not have the same struggles that we're having. And we're coming out of those things, and we can get into a lot of things that have been improving that the state has asked me to take a look at when I first came on 2 years ago. And they've asked me to take a look at those things and gave us benchmarks, what we've made progress and we've met. And so I don't see anything that the state model can do, looking at where it's been, what it's about, that actually can improve on what Mayor Jones is doing, giving me the autonomy and giving me the support to try to get the things done to help improve public safety in the city of St. Louis.
Is she giving you the autonomy? Because Representative Brad Christ, a Republican from Shrewsbury, South County, Southwest County, he told us just this week that if there was a panel of police commissioners and you answered to them, not just to her, that you'd have more latitude. You could implement your full plan. Is there anything you'd like to do that you can't do right now under this mayor?
In all respect to the representative, I think I have a better view and can answer that more accurately, and who I work for, how I can get my job done. One of the things is that I've been a chief before I came here, so I'm not promoted in learning how to be a chief. I've had a pretty good track record. Actually, it's the second city that I'm the first outsider in 200-year history. One of the things coming here, I'm not here for the title. I'm here to try to make a difference. I've had the title of chief. Moving my family 1,000 miles away, there are some things that I needed to come back should I be the police chief after I was chosen. Those things, I need the autonomy to get things done. I needed that agreement to have this mayor push politics aside, let me answer to the mayor, and make sure that I can get the things done and hold me accountable, give me the tools to get it done, and I will never surprise her. And the mayor has held her word and actually has moved things out of the way to allow me to do things that I've done in other places, and she's been remarkable in doing that. And everything that I'm doing, I'm able to do with the autonomy that a chief should have.
Well, this is a political program by nature, and the lawmakers in Jefferson City have said they want to take politics out of policing. So if this is the last time we see you on this political program, that would be a sad thing. But we do appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We're back in a moment. Someone once told me politics is a lot like high school. I think I like that analogy. You've got cliques, teams, rivalries, a lot of nerds. Heck, we've even got candidates running for mayor these days giving each other letter grades on the city's snow response. And look, maybe in high school you bribed your way into the cool crowd with concert tickets or helping a friend out with their homework. In politics, it's six-figure checks that gets you into the door. And you can also learn a lot about who's running with who, taking a look at those campaign finance reports. So let's do that. Let's check the record. Wealthy donors are already lining up behind candidates in this spring's mayor's race, casting their bets with big checks. Candidates can raise limited amounts of money directly into their campaign fund, but the big money, that comes into their political action committees, or PACs. Behind Mayor Tashara Jones, a number of various companies cut her checks. 7 of those companies all share the same lobbyist in common, former GOP House Speaker Steve Tilley. His clients combined to spend $15,500 to the PAC backing her bid. That accounts for nearly 20 cents of every dollar that PAC raised in the most recent filing. One of those companies, Torch Electronics. It runs the unregulated video lottery terminals, or VLTs, you see all over the place. But the incumbent mayor is trailing in the fundraising primary. Her top rival, Kara Spencer, is raising more money in her campaign and the PAC supporting her. Her biggest donor, billionaire Bob Clark, who just cut a big check with a big splash in the race for $111,330.25. Yeah, down to the quarter. He says that's precisely the amount that his firm spent trying to apply for city approval to build a new concrete manufacturing warehouse in the city's north side.
It doesn't hurt my business. It's not impactful to me.
Maybe I misread the press release. It looked like you were specifically making this statement because it blocked a business development of yours. Did I read this wrong?
Well, yeah, but that didn't hurt me. It hurt the St. Louis community. It hurt the citizens. How did it hurt me? I moved to Hazelwood, and my employees feel safer and more confident going to work in Hazelwood than they would have in the city. I was willing to put a stake in the city really as a community gesture.
We wanted to give the mayor a chance to respond, but didn't expect she'd say, sure, come on down to my office. Let's talk about Bob Clark.
He submitted a cement plant which causes air pollution. So we would have been polluting neighborhoods in North City. And so since he doesn't like being told no, he's throwing a temper tantrum.
I pressed him on a couple of things today, and he rebuts that. He says this wasn't going to be creating any pollution. It was all going to be contained in a warehouse facility, and that he just said, okay, well, if St. Louis doesn't want it, we'll take it to Hazelwood.
Right, and he can do that. We asked for retail, not for a cement plant.
Yeah. It's a big check. What will the role of money be in this race?
Obviously, Mr. Clark is trying to buy an opponent. He's trying to buy the mayor's office. The mayor's office is not for sale, and neither is our democracy. And Kara Spencer should return that money.
Well, she's not going to do that. She said, quote, I think he's investing in a different path for the city. I noted in our reporting that Clark gave that money to a political action committee, not directly to Spencer's campaign, and that prompted the mayor's dad to chime in. Quote, the contribution went to a PAC specifically set up to support Kara Spencer. She can and does solicit contributions for that PAC. If she wanted to give the money back, the PAC would. Here again, we should step in and correct the record. According to this guy, Chuck Hatfield, a leading Missouri election law expert, quote, Kara cannot return the money. She doesn't control the PAC. Hey, rules are rules. But as decision days draws near, you can start to sense all this pressure building. Successful campaigns try to deprive their opponents of funding, and if they can't cut the money off, they might try to define their donors as corrupt or donors who want something in exchange for their support. And they might. But if Bob Clark wants the mayor to greenlight development projects in the north side, what does Steve Tilley want? All of these are questions we hope to learn in the days to come before the big final. Those ballots are due April 8th. That's it for us. Until this time next week, we're off the record.